Hey, CPAC family. Happy Friday. Thanks for tuning into the Battle Belongs podcast on CPAC Now. I'm your host, Colton Furlow, and today's a very special and important day because it's the very first episode of the Battle Belongs podcast right here on CPAC Now. Well, it's day one, episode one of the Battle Belongs podcast. Again, my name is Colton Furlow. For those of you who don't know me, thank you for taking the time out of your day to hang out with me and spend the day with me, whether you're watching on CPAC socials or listening wherever you get your podcasts. It's a big day, episode number one. For those of you who don't know me, I've been with CPAC for about 2.5 years now. Usually I'm the guy behind the camera doing the broadcasting and the editing and all that jazz. But I have been in front of the camera quite a few times on social media doing some reels, or most likely you've seen me do man on the street interviews.
My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice!
And those are always my favorite because you just get the raw reactions from people. And I ask the questions that really every American is asking.
What's everyone's favorite part about killing children?
When they die.
Oh, when they die. That's very nice of you. Is that your real stance, or do you want to change that one?
No, I'm going to keep it, thanks.
You like to kill.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Well, I'll pray for you because you need some Jesus.
I just want to say thank you to CPAC and Matt Mercedes Schlatt for allowing me to do a podcast, a full sit down. I want to have something more like intimate where we can connect more and talk longer about the main issues that are facing America today. And when I was trying to think of what kind of podcast do I want to do, because the man on the street stuff, I call it's pretty simple because I talk about pretty simple concepts that the radical left just can't quite comprehend. And I do a few reels on social media regarding that. But when I was trying to think of a podcast that I wanted to do, I really wanted to reach the younger generation, my generation, like Gen Z. And I also wanted to reach people of faith, Christians, because I think these are two of the most important voting blocks that the GOP has to focus on during this upcoming election. And I don't want these two to sound like we're just using them as pawns to win elections. That's not the case. But we have to reach out to these younger generation individuals and people of faith because our party, while it's not perfect, aligns more with biblical stances and just truth, morality, and anything that you would want in a country for it to succeed more than the Democrat side does. And so I was thinking, I want to pull the younger generation in and I want to pull people of faith in, but what is the name going to be? Well, I came up with the title Battle Belongs, and it's inspired, if you haven't heard the song, it's my favorite song. It's been my fight song for about 3 years now, ever since I first heard it. It was in 2021 when I first heard the song. It's by Phil Wickham, who's my favorite Christian artist, and honestly my favorite artist of all time. It has been a fight song for me because no matter what I'm going through in life, no matter the struggles that I have, no matter the battles I have, I know that because I believe in Christ, that my battles have already been won. The war has already been won by God. And that gives me so much comfort when I'm going through trials and tribulations to know that it doesn't really matter. What I'm going through here on earth just really doesn't matter because the battles have already been won and the war has ultimately already been won by God. And I think that hearing that and that being my fight song for the past 3 years, and I could listen to it all day and it will never get old, I just felt like that had to be the title of this podcast because America is falling apart. The world is falling apart. We are a nation divided. And you know what they say, a house divided cannot stand. But we are a nation divided. We are worried. We are on edge about what's going to happen, especially in this upcoming election. We are all scared to death, basically, of what the outcome could be if the radical left gets back in power again. We might not have a country anymore. And so we're seeing all these different problems, not only here in America, but all around the world. And yes, it frustrates me. Yes, it worries me. Yes, it freaks me out. And it makes me, ticked off a little bit. It makes me want to fight a little harder. But I'm also content. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but I'm content because I know the battle is already won. We win in the end. Good wins. Evil is crushed, diminished. Evil will not be a thing one day. Because for those of us who believe, we know God has went before us. He's already laid out the plan, and we win in the end. I mean, has anyone read the good old Bible? Read Revelation. That's all you need to know. We win in the end. So I was thinking, this is good because America is facing all these different challenges. We don't know what's going to happen, but we can be content. We can still fight. We can still fight like heck to win back our country, win the election, and turn our country around, and quite honestly, the world around. But we also know if we lose, we didn't lose anything other than some worldly aspect, because we have already won in the end. God has went before us. He's won our battles. And I thought, we're going to turn this into a podcast. No one else has used that name, so I was thinking, why not me? And Phil, if you're ever listening somehow, I know you're not a political person and you don't get involved in all this, so I'm going to ask for forgiveness before I ask for permission to use this name. But it has inspired me. Like I said, it's been my fight song. His music has inspired me for the past 3 years. And I don't know many people that I can just listen to on repeat that has songs that just relate to me. Every single song that he's come out with ever since I started listening to him hits me in some way or another that I can just relate to. And it's just good music. So a little shout out to him. I'm going to see him when you're watching this. If you're watching it the day it releases, May 3rd, I'm actually in Baltimore, Maryland, listening to Phil Wickham. It's like my 6th or 7th concert listening to him within a year. So yeah, little plug for Phil, because honestly, his songs are amazing. It's what we all need right now to get through this mess. So, Battle Belongs. We're going to be talking about all the different cultural battles that are facing America right now that Gen Z really cares about, and then also talking about the need for the church to get involved. We need the church to get involved, not only just praying, but also getting involved in politics. And I know people will say, well, what about separation of church and state and all that jazz? That doesn't exist, and we're going to have a whole podcast episode about that with a guest on it. So we're going to be talking about the need for the church to get involved. We're going to be having guests who are my generation. We're going to be having guests who are part of the faith-based world, church leaders, who are going to be talking about their own personal struggles. So we're not even going to be talking about politics necessarily all the time on this podcast. We're going to be talking about personal stuff, how we can just get through everyday life when, the world has gone mad. How can we still get through our personal struggles? So we're going to have faith-based leaders come on to talk about, what they've went through and how they've realized that the battle belongs to God and they've overcome those trials and tribulations. And we're also going to be talking with conservative leaders, because ultimately that's what CPAC is. We are a conservative organization that are fighting to save America from the radical left. Basically, they have absolutely destroyed this nation under Joe Biden. And if you can just think back right before COVID, America was thriving. The world was at peace, as far as I'm concerned. It was just good. We were at a good spot. And then COVID came along and ruined all that. And then the election came, ruined all that. And now we're just sitting here thinking, how did we get here? How did we go so far downhill so fast? And it's all thanks to Mr. Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. And we cannot let them win in November. We have to stand up and fight back and win at the ballot box. It's that simple. We have to outvote the Democrats to save America. There's no other way around it. So we're going to be talking about all those different issues that are really affecting America, but also the issues that are affecting our personal lives and give you a little inspiration of how you can overcome these different things. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about my favorite topic, me. Just kidding, but we are going to be talking about me just so I can introduce myself to you so you can get to know me a little more, so you're not listening to some guy's voice or looking at some guy's face and be like, who is this man? He's got a lot of good things to say, but who is he? We're going to be doing some reaction videos because that's the thing that I love. I love going on social media and seeing the ridiculous radical left making fools out of themselves. And so we're going to be looking at a few things like that because if you haven't heard, now this is being filmed on Monday. It's going to be released on Friday. If you haven't heard, our college campuses are an absolute disaster right now, filled with anti-Israel and anti-Jew hate. And they are supporting Hamas. They are supporting this pro-Palestine movement. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about what I learned at church yesterday. So a little bit about me. I'm Colton. Nice to meet you. I am 22 years old. I'm almost 23. We're getting there next month. I was raised in Western Maryland. It was a very red area in a very blue state. And a lot of you have heard this before. I've done videos on this. So if you've heard this, you can skip along or re-listen for a history lesson. But I grew up in Western Maryland, and I wasn't involved in politics really at all, nor was my family. And I didn't want to be involved in politics. I didn't want to have anything to do with politics really growing up. And my parents weren't even involved. My family wasn't involved in politics as far as I know. But we did know where we landed on the political spectrum. We knew we were conservative because we were Christian. And we got our political beliefs from the Bible. And that's how it should be, because morals come from the Bible. Whether you realize that or not, morals do come from the Bible. They don't come from anywhere else. We got our political opinions and political ideology from the Bible. So we knew we were conservative. And I guess the extent of my family's political involvement was, I just remember as a little kid going to the voting booth in 2008 during the Obama election, and I remember her voting for the Republican. And we did it again in, 2012? And that was basically it. That's the extent of our political involvement. We didn't go out and campaign for people. We didn't have signs in our yards. We just went to the voting booth and picked the Republican basically up and down the ballot. And growing up, I was just like a sports person. And I think I kind of just settled on being a sports broadcaster. Since I love sports so much, I loved college sports. And I thought I could really see myself just traveling all over the country on ESPN and just being a sports broadcaster. Like, that is the life. That sounds amazing to me. Just going to all the top games that I'd like to go see and working and getting paid to watch the games and do it basically I'm doing right now. Like, that is the dream. Kind of still is the dream for me. But, once you get into conservative politics, you're going to be canceled by the mainstream media, and the lefties over at Disney will not have me on ESPN. That is for certain. So, but I'm very content where I am right now. So that's kind of what I settled on. But then in high school, I remember this distinct class that I was in. I was in AP Government and Politics, and my teacher was kind of like poking me to get involved. She knew I was very opinionated. I was I was very opinionated, but I wasn't involved politically. I would just run my mouth. And I think that's what most people hated about me back then, and they still hate me for that reason now, is I would just run my mouth. Even though sometimes I didn't even know what I was talking about. If I felt like it was just factual, I was running with it, and I was going to tell the world about it, and I wouldn't shut up about it. So I was very opinionated in school growing up. And I think my teacher realized that. She started poking me. She was like, you should do this. You should get involved. So I started to take a liking to government and politics in my AP class, and that was freshman year of high school. And she eventually got me to run for class office, and I ran for secretary my freshman year. And then the end of freshman year, I decided that the current president wasn't doing a good enough job, so I would run for president of the class, and I ended up winning and becoming the president for the next 3 years. And during my freshman year, during that class, we did an exercise where we would put down like all of our opinions, and there was like the topics. There was like abortion, there was like immigration, the border, things like that, and you wrote like where you align with it. And then we all stood up, and on one side of the room it was liberal, the sign that said liberal, and on the other side of the room it said conservative, and in the middle was like independent. And I forget how it was ranked, but the teacher would read something, and if you aligned with it, you'd go to this spot. Anyway, I ended up being the furthest person on the right. Um, this is my left hand. Furthest person on the right, conservative. And it wasn't that I was a radical person. It was the fact that I was just sticking with my conservative, biblical, and constitutional foundation of what I believed without even really being involved in politics. And it just blew my mind that I was kind of like the furthest person on the right without even being involved in politics. And there was other people who have been involved in politics or who actually like politics, and they were just all on this side. So then I was like, boy, I'm in for a ride now. So I started to take a liking into politics and government and started to follow it a little bit more. And Donald Trump won in 2016, but during his campaign and during the primary season, I wasn't like a huge fan of him. I didn't like his personality. And then I started to actually listen to him a little bit more and really started to like Donald Trump. And I think that's how a lot of America fell in love with him, because he says it like it is. He's not the typical, lifelong politician. He was a Democrat and kind of woken up to this idea that America's falling apart under the Democrat Party. And, under that time we had Obama as president and the country was divided. And props to him for running. And I eventually fell in love with him and was supporting him, but obviously I couldn't do anything other than be a Facebook keyboard warrior. And I wore a red MAGA hat, and that was basically the extent in high school that I was involved in politics. I really liked him. I really liked what he had to say. And I know now that his personality was what got the job done. His personality was what kept us out of wars when he was president. So I thank him for everything that he did, and we have to get him back into office this November. I was still focused on going to school for sports broadcasting. I wanted to go to West Virginia University, which is the school that I love. And in Western Maryland, we're just a rock throw away from the West Virginia border. And we've had season tickets for football for going on 22, 23 years now. So my whole life has been surrounded by West Virginia athletics, and that's where I wanted to go. Then something changed. I came down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for vacation, and I decided to look around at this school called Coastal Carolina University, which I really didn't know who they were other than the fact that they just won the 2016 national championship in college baseball. And I didn't even know that there was a big university right here in Myrtle Beach, and I was just on vacation. I immediately fell in love with the campus, and I was like, wow, college at the beach. You really can't beat that. And the only problem was they didn't have sports broadcasting. So I was, debating, like, what do I do? I really love this campus. I don't like the West Virginia campus. It's just huge. It's in the mountains. You're going to get snow. And I'm a beach bum. Like, I am meant to be at the beach. So long story short, God decided to pull me to South Carolina and go to Coastal Carolina University. And the degree and what I went to school for was intelligence and national security. I always loved like FBI stuff growing up, like watching it on TV and all these different movies and TV shows like 007, all that stuff I really loved. And I kind of thought like I could be an FBI agent or something like that. So that's what I went to school for. I ended up graduating in 2.5 years with a degree in intelligence and national security and a double minor in pre-law and criminology. But it was at Coastal that I realized that I had to get involved in politics, and which led me to where I am today. So when I say God has a plan that is better than mine, God has a plan that is better than mine, because never in a million years did I ever think that I'd be working in politics, let alone be working at CPAC, let alone be doing a podcast with CPAC or on CPAC now, and talking to thousands and thousands of people about the issues that are facing America right now. I would have thought that. So God pulled me that way. And I was thinking, okay, fine. I'm going to go down to the beach to college. Not the worst thing in the world. My grandparents also moved down to Myrtle Beach. They had a condo, but then they ended up selling their house and moved down too. So I'd have family down here. The weather would be amazing. And I would be surrounded by like-minded individuals because I'm going to be in the South. So I'm going to be surrounded by people my age who think like me and have the same values as me. So I'll have a lot of friends who can relate to me. That didn't happen. This was the first time I experienced culture shock. And I didn't think I was going to be experiencing culture shock in a college in South Carolina, let alone in one of the reddest districts on the east side of the Mississippi. And I learned it very quick how liberal Coastal Carolina University was. I wore a red MAGA hat because, like I said, I was supporting Trump at that point, but I still wasn't really involved. I wore a red MAGA hat on campus, and I was getting harassed within the first 2 weeks of school. Harassed because I was wearing a red MAGA hat. People telling me that I'm a bigot, I'm a racist, I'm a sexist, all of these things because of my hat. And I'm thinking, you have no idea who I am. It's the second week of college, and you're just coming at my neck. Well, it didn't stop with just the students. And here was the turning point for me in my life with getting involved in politics. Mind you, up until that point, still wasn't involved other than keyboard warrior, red MAGA hat guy. I go into one of my classes, which is an intelligence analysis class, I believe it was. This guy, his name is Professor Jonathan Acuff. He put in a syllabus that if you consume right-wing media, which is a cesspool of deceit and disinformation, and it listed Fox News, Breitbart, Newsmax, all of those, no one is going to respect you or take you seriously. And I thought, oh my gosh, I got this day one of that class. And I was thinking, Lord, what do I do? And, I was just kind of thinking, should I stand up? Should I say anything? And I was like, no, I don't want to get kicked out. I don't want an F. I don't want people to hate me. And that thought process lasted for maybe an hour. If that, I talked to my family and they were like, you got to pray on it and do what you got to do. So I did. The next time I had that class, I went in and, I thought about what I was going to say. And when he read through the syllabus and asked if anyone had any questions, I said, yeah, I have a question. Do you believe that this is bias? Because I think this is a little political bias. And I have this all recorded on my phone. I made sure it was legal, and it's still on my phone recorded. And he was like, no, it's not bias. And he just kind of went in on this, what's it called, a rabbit hole of how Republicans live on unicorn land. Fox News produces lies after lies after lies. And I was like, what about CNN? Because I guess it was right before that was the Summer of Love when we had all these protests, and CNN was like, mostly peaceful protest as the buildings are burning behind the guy. And I was like, what about CNN? He says CNN produces facts. And I was like, Lord have mercy, help me. And what he didn't know is I already sent the syllabus to the dean the night before, the night that I got it and read it. And I was like, this is bias. Something needs to be done about this. Political opinion should be out of the classroom. And, he was just telling me, the professor in the class, that it was not bias and Republicans, blah, 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 bashing Republicans. And the dean was like, you raise a good point. Long story short, no one really did anything about it at the school. They kind of did like an investigation apparently, but I didn't hear anything back. But at that point, I had connections to the lieutenant governor of South Carolina. And I don't know this for certain, but someone told me that the lieutenant governor's office had a chit-chat with Coastal regarding this and just basically making sure it's not going to happen again. Whether that happened for certain, I don't know, but that's just what I was told. And I don't think anything was ever done about it really, because when I walked across the stage getting my diploma, I gave him a nice little hello because he was on stage and still there. But I moved out of that class to a different professor, and it was that moment I realized exactly what's happening all across America on college campuses. And not only just on college campuses, this is happening in high school, in middle school, and now elementary school and pre-K, basically. People are falling for the radical left's indoctrination. And I was like, I just can't complain about it and not do anything about it. So I decided to get involved. I got involved on a local campaign, and that really didn't go anywhere. And I was just kind of making connections of like, the people in the area of who's involved in politics. And I was going to the county meetings and sharing my story, and everyone was like, thank you for speaking up. And they asked me, did anyone else in the class say anything or do anything? And I was like, no, I was the only one. And that's when I realized that it only takes one of us to actually make a difference. Whether or not anything really happened with this guy, I don't know. But it only takes one person to stand up against the current and stick up for what you believe in and protect other students from being indoctrinated and having opinions forced down their throat. You can have any belief that you want, but when it comes to the class time, keep it professional and just talk about the things that we need to know. That's when I was like, I have to get involved. So, and I decided that I was going to forego any career in the field that I went to school for. And I decided to apply for different internships, and I got one at CPAC. I went to DC after college, and I haven't looked back yet of that career. I'm fully involved with fighting for America. I am tired of watching the radical leftists try to destroy our country, try to indoctrinate our students. So my mission is, whether I change one mind or 1,000 minds, it's to wake people up from the indoctrination that they're facing on these college campuses, or prevent them from falling for the trap. Thankfully, I was raised correctly, and now I'm able to share the story, and I know exactly what's happening on the college campuses. I needed to go through that experience to be where I am today. And I think my message to recap all of that is, be brave, be bold, and stand up and fight back against the narrative. Because when you do, you're helping other people realize that, they can stand up too. And there is so much strength in numbers. It just takes one of us to actually stand up and fight back. You encourage other people, you inspire other people, and I promise you there is more of us than there are of them. So now that you know basically how I got to where I am today, a little more about me as a person is I live in South Carolina. I love playing tennis. I actually have a tournament coming up in a couple weeks. I just found a new church down here. I was raised in a Baptist church, and as I was hopping around different, places where I was living, the different states, I was hopping around different churches and was going to a lot of non-denominational ones, but I finally found another Baptist church that I really love. I've only been there twice, but I fell in love with it. It just felt like home. So I'm going there now, and very excited to see how I can grow and meet people and, make more friends down here, because all of my friends I was in college with are now gone, and I'm kind of here all alone, but I needed to get back to the beach. But found that new church. I love tennis. I still love college football. I basically go back every weekend in the fall to watch West Virginia games. It's about an 8-hour trip. So worth it, though. I love concerts, but only if they're Christian concerts. I rarely listen to any, I guess you call it secular music anymore, unless it's like country. I'm okay with country or throwbacks like the 80s and stuff. I can always jam out and boogie to that, especially when I'm cleaning the house and stuff. That's some good music to listen to, and me and Mom will jam out to that. But Christian concerts, love them. I think I've already talked enough about Phil Wickham, but absolutely love his music. Brandon Lake is probably my second favorite artist. Maybe one day I'll talk about my favorite songs. We'll give you a list of 10 of my favorite Christian worship songs that y'all can go listen to. But love Brandon Lake. Casting Crowns, I didn't used to like them, but now I love them. We the Kingdom. Who else? Riley Clemens. I didn't even know she existed. I'm so sorry, Riley, if you ever listen to this. I didn't know she existed. I'd heard 2 songs of hers, and then when I went to this Christian music festival at Universal Studios this year, and she was there, and I was like blown away with her music. It's amazing, and her and Phil released new albums last year, and they're the only 2 that I can wholeheartedly say I love every song of both of their albums. I can't say that much. Usually there's like at least 1 or 2 songs out of someone's album that I just don't like. 100% love every song on both of their albums. So yeah, going to see Phil again today when it's released. Going to see him again in August because he's with Brandon Lake. Going to see Casting Crowns again. I love Kane, by the way. Kane, I think I'm going to see them in October. I just love Christian concerts. I don't need to go party or anything. Just take me to a Christian concert, or I'll take you to a Christian concert. I am single. Wink, wink. Mercy has made it a point to try to find me a wife at any of the CPAC conferences that I work at, and I think I've been to 4 or 5 so far. We've been very unsuccessful with that. So hit me up. I don't have many requirements, or I think requirements is probably not the right word, but I mean, maybe they're requirements. You have to be a woman, number one, that has always been a woman from birth to now. Your chromosomes don't change, and you can't have any mutilations to make you believe that you're a woman. You have to be a Christian, obviously, and conservative. You have to align with my conservative beliefs, and also shorter than me, which I'm 6'1", 6'2", so I don't think that should be a problem. Anyway, very unsuccessful. So I'll take you to a Christian concert. I don't drink anymore. Not that I had a problem with drinking, but I'd have one socially, but I haven't since December 31st, 2023, and I don't think I plan to in a long time. Other things about me, I collect elephants. I don't know if you can see them. See if they're in the shot. My Nana got me this as a little housewarming gift. It's an elephant reading a book on top of a book with a lamp. Cutest thing ever. Elephant here. My Nana also had that one made for me off of Etsy, I think. But it's a Republican elephant. Obviously, that's why I love elephants. Another thing about me is I have my own candle business. It's called Freedom Flames Candle Company. I won't talk about it long so I don't get in trouble. Here's one. Let's Go Brandon. They're all Christian conservative candles that are like clean burning, non-toxic, things like that. But they all have like funny or Christian sayings on them. So you can go find those at freedomflames.org. And yeah, that's just kind of me in a nutshell. I'm a big sports guy, and that's sports and politics now are what my life revolves around, and church and God, obviously. So now that we got all the important stuff, like the information about me out of the way, I have my nice little headphones on, and we're going to take a look into what's happening around our country, because we know our country's a mess right now, and we are in a spiritual battle. We are in cultural warfare, but as we know, the battle belongs to God. He's already won it. But let's take a look into what's happening at one of the most prestigious Ivy League schools, Harvard. Let's see what their students are up to. I have no idea what they're saying right now. Something about liberation and occupation. And free Palestine. So if you couldn't tell what they're doing, they are all protesting, obviously. They've been doing this for over a week now. They are raising a Palestinian flag on the campus of Harvard. Now, what that shows me is that these students are pledging allegiance to that flag. They are pledging allegiance to Palestine. And my response to that is, good. Let's round them up, put them all on a bus, take them to the airport, and send them over to Palestine. They can join Hamas and see if Hamas will welcome them with open arms. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're not going to welcome them with open arms. In fact, they are actually going to hate them. If you know anything about these protesters and what they look like and who they are and what their background is, Sorry to tell you, but Hamas is not on your side. Plain and simple. So why are these people so worked up about hating Israel, hating Jews, and protesting on these college campuses? Well, this one girl, you would think she'd have an answer as to why they're doing what they're doing, but instead she says, what are we even protesting for?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what? About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free.
I wish I was more educated. I'm not either.
Oh.
I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support. So I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was getting dangerous.
I mean, come on. You show up to a protest at a school that you don't even go to, and you have to wonder what you're protesting against? I mean, are these people being paid to just show up and cause chaos? It's absolutely ridiculous. So now that we've checked up on Harvard, let's check up on Columbia now and see where their tuition money is going to. Wow. Very, very moving and inspiring. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this is. I'm trying to look in the comments here to see if there's like a meaning behind it, or like what's the significance of all of these like rope and string things and dancing. Like, can you even call this dancing? This is just weird. This is what the people on college campuses are so focused on right now. I mean, guys, your finals are probably like this week or next week, within 2 weeks at least. Finish your classes and go home. What in the world is wrong with our students here? Thankfully, when I was at Coastal Carolina, there was nothing like this. I don't know. I haven't seen anything on the news of anyone protesting at Coastal Carolina, but if they are, you know I'll be there. And now let's check in on the West Coast at UCLA. So here we have a woman who has an Israeli flag wrapped around her, eating bananas and dancing with bananas. And the caption says, this woman is really fired up about this dancer with bananas. She says, there was a protester in the liberated zone at UCLA with a potentially fatal banana allergy. Counter-protesters invaded the encampment and saw all the no banana warnings. The next day they came back, waving bananas like settlers waving machine guns, and smeared bananas everywhere. Oh my gosh. Imagine going out in public and protesting and saying that you can't bring bananas around this area because I have a fatal allergy of bananas. How entitled do these people think they are? It truly just blows my mind. A man at the UCLA campus, he's going around the encampment, pro-Palestinian encampment, and does this at 4:30 a.m.
Hey, this is not a test. This is rock and roll. Time to rock it from the...
What a dude. What a dude.
That sounds like an Elvis Presley movie.
Wake up, commies! Wake up!
Oh, he says, wake up, commies. That's hilarious. And the sign says UCLA law says free Palestine. Another sign that says peace. What I really love about this video is that it looks like it's like a 1990s home movie. This is epic. I love it. The guy with the sunglasses at 4:30 a.m. Just so good. One of the major things that I have a problem with in our country right now is that the radical left is coming after our children. especially with drag queens. And you hear all these people that are like, no, 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 drag queens aren't dancing and stripping in front of children. And then videos are released of drag queens dancing and stripping on top of children, giving them lap dances. And they're also like, no, 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 they're not pushing a narrative on children. Well, here it is. It's a queer story time for Palestine. And it says, I believe that this is put on by Valley Families for Palestine up in Massachusetts. And this is what is happening.
If you're a drag queen and you know it, shout Free Palestine! If you're a drag queen and you know it and you really want to show it, you're a drag queen and you know it, shout Free Palestine!
I mean, it's sick. Not only is it sick that this drag queen is talking to children about freeing Palestine is absurd in and of itself, but the fact that grown men have to dress up like ugly weirdo women don't even look like this. Women don't even dress and act like this. But the fact that they have to dress up like this and do all this stuff in front of children to feel validated and seen and heard is more absurd to me than talking about Palestine. What kind of mental gymnastics does one have to go through to do this and think it's okay? This is enough evidence for padded rooms, for asylums to be brought back in the United States. This is disgusting. It is grooming. It's pedophilia, I think. I mean, the fact that these guys love doing this in front of children, that's pedophilia. It is disgusting. And I do not support it whatsoever. I have zero tolerance for it. I dare someone, if I ever have kids one day and I have a drag queen, a man dressed up like a ridiculous woman, try to read to my students, we're going to have a problem. Or my children, we're going to have a problem. And now while we're on this gender identity thing and how there's 500 million different genders out there and the ways that you can identify it, did you know you can also identify now as a season? Yeah, it's called gender season. Listen to this.
There is a gender identity that is linked to the seasons. This is called gender season. And this is a gender identity I've only just learned about. It's a micro identity. It's not an identity that I have ever heard discussed before. It's a new one for me. Gender season is...
So she just heard of it. Obviously, she is a woke warrior. She knows all about the 500 million different genders out there. But she hasn't heard of this one. So it just comes up out of nowhere, and she's going to embrace it and take it for what it is, and that's that. We have to accept it because it was just made up, and it's a new gender now, and we have to be a gender season.
An individual who explores their gender identity in relation to a season or all the seasons. So this might be somebody whose gender expression and identity is linked to one season, so for example, winter. Right. Or this might be somebody whose gender identity and expression changes depending on the season.
What are we doing? What has this world come to? This is the result of the older generations failing to discipline their kids, failing to spank them with a wooden spoon or a paddle. Because let me tell you, I got the wooden spoon growing up, and I didn't turn out like this, where I was accepting the false idea that you can be identifying with a season, a gender that identifies with a season. What in the world? This is on the past generations for failing to discipline. The past generations just want to be friends with their kids. They don't want to discipline them. They don't want to teach them right and wrong, truth and lies, or morals for that matter. And this is the result. So now it's up to our generation and the next generation to fix this mess that has been laid out before us. And people might get upset with that, but I cannot stand when I hear older generations say, Gen Z is so stupid. That generation is so screwed up, and they're just horrible. They're not well behaved. All facts, very much so, are all facts. But why? Why did we get to this point? How did we get here? Well, we took God out of schools. We stopped going to church. Our family units have broken down. There was no discipline. Everyone got a participation trophy growing up. All of those things led to where we are now, and it's not our fault. It is not our fault, but we are here to fight back like the Battle Belongs podcast so we can talk about these things and figure out how we can fix them. Even though they are worldly battles and we know that God wins in the end, I don't think a lot of us just want to continue down this road of absolute societal destruction that are coming from the Democrats. And what they're pushing on America and what they're pushing on our children is insane. And it has to stop. It has to end. And it has to be defeated. Evil has to be defeated in 2024. Will winning an election get rid of evil in the world? Absolutely not. But it's going to halt the power that has been running rampant in this country for the last 3.5 years. It has to end. Now, before we close, I want to give you a little bit of encouragement, if that wasn't enough already, because when I was in church yesterday, we had a good sermon. It was very short because it was Baptism Sunday, and it really relates to the title Battle Belongs. And I was like, I knew it. This is the confirmation that this was the right title for the podcast, and this is the right church. Like, everything was just making sense. So, title's Battle Belongs, meaning, life is hard here on earth. We go through a lot of battles, struggles, trials, and tribulations. But for those of us who believe, we know that God already won the battles and the war, and we win in the end. Well, the sermon was titled, It's Not Over Till It's Over. And it was surrounding one verse, Joshua 13:1. And it's basically, here, I'll just read it to you. I got my We the People Bible. All right, Joshua 13:1 says, Now Joshua was old and stricken in years, and the Lord said unto him, Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed. So basically, what the sermon was about, and it named It's Not Over Till It's Over, was basically that, Joshua is very old. God acknowledges that. But there's land still to be possessed. So it's not done yet. You still have time on this earth. So make use of that time, because God still has assignments for you and still has a purpose for you. If he wakes you up in the morning, God has a purpose for you. So while we still have time left here on this earth, we have to fight these battles. Even though that they're earthly battles and we know who wins in the end, we still have to fight to make America and the world a better place. And one of the notes was, if you're not dead, God's not done. And I couldn't think of a better sermon to get me ready for this podcast. And I'm so excited to go on this journey with all of you. We just have to unite together. We have to unite to fight back, to fight against this radical regime, this radical Democrat Party, this radical ideology. It's a party of evil. It's an ideology of evil, and it must be stopped. We have to unite together through this campaign cycle and election cycle, and we have to win in November if we want any chance of helping to save America and turning this world around. I'm very excited to be going on this journey with you. I've tried to start podcasts in the past before just by myself, but I can never keep up with it. But now that it's through work, you're going to see me every Friday, or listen to me every Friday here on the Battle Belongs podcast. This is like my temporary setup right now. I'm on a beanbag right now, but I have to go back to Maryland because that's where I was before I just moved down here to South Carolina again. And I had to get my desk and a chair. So this setup is going to be changing just a tad bit, but we had to work with what we got right now. And I'm just very excited to go on this journey with you all. I hope someone takes something away from every episode. And I'm just excited for next week's episode. We're going to be diving more into just the raunchy, disgusting cultural warfare and spiritual warfare that we are in. So thank you all for watching Battle Belongs podcast. Again, I'm Colton Furlow. You can stay up to date with everything that we're doing here at CPAC. You can go to cpac.org or follow CPAC on social medias at CPAC. That's CPAC. Or you can follow me on social medias. Everything is the same. It's at Colton Furlow, but you have to spell it correctly because my parents decided to spell my name weird and make it more difficult for my life. So it's at COLETONFURLOW. Not only is my first name spelled irregularly, my last name is also. So make sure you spell it right. COLETONFURLOW on all social medias. Thank you so much for watching the Battle Belongs podcast. We'll talk next week.